Are you the generational curse breaker within your family? Were you the scapegoat, the black sheep? Rest assured, you've been called for a purpose. Are you ready to answer that call? Hello, my name is Leilani Simon from Seeking Wisdom Coaching, and I am here today to talk to you about being born into a family system as the generational curse breaker. That is an honourable position to be in, even though it doesn't feel like it when you're growing up. It feels quite the opposite, because the generational curse breaker will often be the shame dumping basket ground for the whole family. But it is a privilege, and as we grow up and we grow in the Lord and we're given eyes to see, then we're also given the tools to overcome. Are you the generational curse breaker within your family? Were you the scapegoat, the black sheep? Rest assured, you've been called for a purpose. Are you ready to answer that call? Now the wheat has been sown among the tares, or they say the tares are sown among the wheat. Either way, this is very true on many levels, including fractally. Even within our own flesh, the wheat is the born-again spirit, and it is within the tares, which is our own flesh. Now, the spirit of self-control can help us to attain mastery, and with Christ, all things are possible. So obviously, this is a sanctification, and it's a work in progress, and it doesn't end until the day of Jesus Christ. However, we can only control our own vessel and our own body and our own attitude and our own reactions. And I suppose what growing up really means is taking responsibility for that and relinquishing control of trying to change other people. The scapegoat child of a narcissistic family system has often spent much of their youth trying to, shake some sense into the people around them. But that's not going to work. And, unless God changes the heart and mind of someone else, it's not going to happen. So, on growing up, we realise that we can't change the others around us, and we can only take responsibility for ourselves. So, are you ready to do that? Say amen if you are. As a young child, the truth teller in the family couldn't understand why the others didn't get it, why they couldn't be integrous. I mean, it is clear that integrity is genuinely valued openly and widely in society. So much so that the devious do pretend to have integrity, because it's obviously a value that society thinks is necessary to have as a reasonable human being. So the narcissists in our world gravitate toward the integrous. They pretend to be one. They gravitate towards those who truly are. And this is why it's not by chance who is chosen to be the scapegoat in a family, who is chosen to be the shame bearer of the whole family. The system, the strongholds, call it demonic strongholds or call it a dysfunctional family system, whichever angle works for you, is there to uphold the dysfunction. And the truth teller threatens the dysfunction that holds the whole family system together. And that's what makes them the potential generational curse breaker. Praise God. So the narcissists in our world, they gravitate towards the honest and integral people, hoping that those people will still have enough naivety to be preyed upon and energetically and spiritually fed from. So at the moment that somebody leaves home, and they leave, the parental family home, they may or may not have healed in terms of how they relate to their family and any introjects, any internalizations of the family's opinions that they may have put inside themselves and not realized are not their own true values and their own true opinions. So when someone leaves home, depending on how healed they are in these regards, they will continue to exhibit those patterns and behaviors, and those introjects will continue to rule the patterns of behavior that they have with the wider world. And this is where familiar spirits come in, because many times what happens is if somebody comes from a dysfunctional family of origin, then they're quite easy prey for other narcissists, say for a spousal narcissist. And often what happens when the person who's unhealed comes together with a potential partner, the potential partner in them, there is a feeling of familiarity, and it may even be mentioned like, oh, you feel so familiar to me. And these are literally, if you want to see it from the spiritual angle, are familiar spirits. If you don't, we can also see it from the habitual angle, which is where these habits were formed in childhood and were cognitively, behaviorally put into the system through our conditions of worth and our values when we were younger. And until we heal these things, whether we come from a psychological or spiritual approach, we are easy targets and easy pickings for the manipulative and antagonistic narcissists that are out there in the wider world. And even in workplaces, it will be difficult for us until we heal to be able to say, you are welcome to your opinion, Mr. or Mrs. Narcissist, and I don't agree with it. And I'm just going to stay over here and you do your thing. You're welcome to. Yeah. So we're in the world and we're not of it. And praise God that we're given eyes to see. Even if having been given those eyes to see, it causes, sadness and disappointment along the way. Our blinkers come off as we grow off, and we realise that we've been in bondage, in servitude to evil. People-pleasing and codependency, these things, they serve the devil, they serve the enemy. They are not serving the good forces in the universe. The enemy likes to convince us that this prideful, false humility of subservience to darkness is true meekness and humility, but it is not. We're not here to tolerate evil and say that it is good. But the Bible does warn us that in the last days, good will be called evil and evil will be called good. And this is why these dysfunctional constructs are not only found in the family system, but they can be found in a work system and in a wider system of society as well. Anyway, we've been blessed to be able to see in the light of truth. However, humility and meekness, true humility and true meekness will allow us to see things for how they really are. For us to think that serving evil is good, we are lying to ourselves. There is still not integrous. So we would still be being hypocrites to think that we are walking in integrity if we don't say things for how they really are. However, humility and meekness do allow us to be kind whilst we see these things, and kind where and when we choose it is right to share the truth. Now, the narcissist does not know kindness. Yes, they seek out the kind people because they want to milk them for all of their energetic worth, but the narcissist, in their heart of hearts, they don't know kindness because they don't know love. What they know is throwing out backhanded compliments. They know how to breadcrumb with what seems like love in order to have their agenda met. Covert narcissists particularly like to throw around backhanded compliments. They appear on the outside to be compliments of genuine care, comments of genuine care, but they hide within them a dig at the confidence of the target, a seed of doubt to be sown. Some examples of backhanded compliments would be, "It's a good job you're pretty," implying that there is some fault somewhere else that needs to be made up for. Another one would be, "You're so fortunate that you don't have any responsibilities." I think this one can be quite common with single stay-at-home mums, or even just stay-at-home mums, and until they make a list of everything they're doing with it every hour of the day, occasionally other people will think, oh, you don't do anything, you just stay at home. So that comment, you're so fortunate that you don't have any responsibilities. Well, is it really true? Does that person really not have any responsibilities? Which means you are diminishing the responsibilities that they have. You are saying that those things are meaningless and worthless and do not deserve to count as being regarded as a responsibility. So another one would be, you're so nice when you make an effort. And then there's the smoke afterwards, isn't it? Yeah, so that obviously, it's obvious there. It's implying that they don't usually make an effort, but probably if that person is, a scapegoated codependent, they've probably been making really quite an effort their whole existence. So anyway, these covert narcissists may sow seeds of doubt by questioning the validity of one's plans that one just so excitedly shared with them. And this isn't just covert narcissists, this can be anyone. And it could be done in a very overt way as well. It doesn't have to be backhanded comments to be invalidating. So they can sow seeds of doubt by doubting your capability to execute the plan that you've just so excitedly told them about. They might surreptitiously or sneakily just mention a past failure in their conversation somewhere along the way to, again, just sow a tiny little seed of doubt that they want to be watered and grown. Anyway, so I say all of this, and we're not here to blame them, but we are here to learn the patterns of different systems and how they function. And we are here to grow up and pull up our big boy or girl socks and allow these people their opinions and to give emotional distance between us, our true selves, who we're getting to know, and these people's opinions. So it can be helpful in this process of growing up. And that doesn't matter whether you're 60 or 20. Growing up isn't on a clear and obvious spectrum like that. But the day that we decide, or the day that, God has granted us the wall be lifted over our eyes and we can see what's going on, at that point, it is sensible, as I said before, not to be empathic with the unempathic. So we don't want to go around telling all and sundry, or even those that we really want to support us but are not supportive, about our plans for the future. Because those seeds of doubt, if they're coming from a place, a family system that we spent so many years internalizing when we were young, and if we are in the process of getting that family system from out of us, it may be difficult if we are giving that system too much information about where we're going, because we're trying to give ourselves as much strength and encouragement as possible, but we need it to be genuine and we are not looking to be cut down. I knew someone, and when she was 17, another person said to her, "Why do you care so much what people think of you?" And this client, she said that she didn't understand at the time what this person was saying, because she couldn't see any other way to think or to be. And she thought about what her friend had said. And after a while, she thought it was true. I do really care what other people think of me. But she couldn't see any other way around this. And it took her many years to come to the realization of where these introjected ideas had come from, and that they weren't truly her ideas. She was trained like a circus monkey that she had to care about everyone else's opinions, but that her own were, obviously, unimportant. Needless to say, she grew up to become quite a fine young woman, and she did go through a time where she stopped telling her family her future plans because she had to practice those muscles of either validating herself or seeking validation from truly reciprocal sources. So absolutely true friends who are there without an agenda to pull you down. So when we're children, the enemy uses those weaker vessels around us and I don't mean like men or women as in weaker vessels, I mean those who are spiritually weak, to cause us to feel condemned, as if we're not good enough. I mean, Satan does literally mean the accuser. So the enemy tries to break our spirit, but there is good news, because God came for the broken, and God is love, the one thing that they cannot know, unless he allows it and they humble themselves. Yeah. So the issue is, with narcissistic parents, feelings are only allowed or recognised if they are deemed the correct feelings to have according to the narcissistic parent or parents. This creates a situation in the child where they internalise the thought that they are wrong if they exist with their feelings. So the issue is, with narcissistic parents, feelings are only allowed or recognised if they are correct to have, or deemed correct to have, by the narcissistic system and the narcissistic family. So this creates a situation in the child where they feel wrong to exist with their true feelings. And it means that they have to find a way to feel safe in a state where they disregard their own feelings. But that's not true safety. True safety is where we're allowed to feel our feelings and we ain't going to get dissed or put down for it, or disregarded or not recognised. The rejection is a fear for the child, because that would put them into a dire state of non-survival, of non-existence, to be rejected by their primary caregivers. So this makes them prime targets for when they're older, if they're not healed in these departments, for, as said before, the familiar spirits that can come in and recreate a scenario where the survivor feels that they're safe in that situation, in the situation where their true feelings are deemed as wrong. And then this perpetuates a cycle of abuse until the target of such abuse wakes up to what's going on. So there's this sense of false guilt that has been instilled into the scapegoated child. And this false guilt, we say false guilt because it's not truly what the child would have believed without being told that they are wrong when they're not wrong. But it feels very real, and it can be very awkward to try to practice upholding one's own reality, not according to this false guilt of, say, the family system of origin or of anyone else in the world. So narcissistic people, if they want to attack you, they will do so, no matter how much you did or didn't contribute to the system. So it's quite good to try to practice feeling okay and radically accepting that false guilt when it crops up. You can even say to yourself, if you're not ready to let go of it yet, I am not ready to let go of this false guilt yet. And actually see how it eases the way for that false guilt to go, because as long as we're fighting with it, it's going to want to stay. If we accept it, then it's given an ease of passage to be released. False guilt also comes from false accusations. These are believable to the child, because the child doesn't have a framework that we get as we grow up to work from. All they know is, well, maybe my parents are right because I did do that wrong, so then maybe I did everything wrong. And then they can internalize all these beliefs of wrongness about themselves that have no validity. So the child is then under bondage of false guilt and doesn't realize that they're not being selfish many of the times that they are accused of being selfish. I mean, maybe they are being age appropriate. What the narcissistic parent will do is to accuse the child of being selfish, even when the child has tried their best to behave. If you'd been more giving, more caring, then this relationship would work. This is a statement that would trigger the false childhood systemic guilt. And narcissistic partners will do this. They will try and convince their codependent partner that they just need to work harder, do more, love harder, all of these things. listen more. So that's going to make the relationship work. But this is false promises for the future. False promises for a false future. It's not going to happen. So all narcissistic relationships are filled with this false guilt, as the narcissist must remain superior no matter what. And this is done at the expense of all those individuals that they can induce a false sense of shame in. The devil is the accuser. Satan, as we said, means the accuser. So they are hypocrites. They can throw out the accusations like it's from a machine gun. But what about their own accountability? They expect you to be more than accountable. They expect you to actually admit to things that you didn't do. Oh yeah, they're not capable of accountability. So when the scapegoat child is growing up and they achieve something and they feel powerful in that moment, like, yes, I can probably be something, I could be someone, I could do something of consequence in this world. If they come home and share that with their narcissistic parent, they will be sure to be shut down. Anyhow, when the scapegoat child is growing up, unlike a child who grows up in a good enough parented family or with good enough parents, any feelings of power that child has when they achieve something will quickly be quelled by the narcissistic parent. One example I have from a case study is a girl who, she excelled musically. She was very talented, and her school had decided to not have her in harmony lessons, but instead to give her, during that time, one-to-one tuition to help her get into Oxford or Cambridge. That is the equivalent to Americans' Yale or Harvard. So the little girl comes home absolutely buzzing to share this. This is kind of an accolade for her. It's a true achievement that they believe in her that much that she could potentially have an actual future where she is actually someone and a functional human being. Not only just barely functional, but successful in an area that she wants success in. So this young girl makes the mistake of sharing this news with her mother. Her mother, who until that point in time seemed okay, her face turns to scorn and anger and vitriol. She shouts after her face is contorted at her young daughter and says, "Why are you telling me this? You're telling me this just to disappoint me." And then that special class is never mentioned again. The little girl feels disappointed and despondent. All her enthusiasm is quelled. She feels unhopeful and very alone. She never applied to those Ivy League colleges. And instead she ended up going to wash dishes for someone because she didn't feel that she was good enough to do anything else on leaving school. Such moments happen continuously in the life of the scapegoated child. However, golden children are no better off. The golden child can appear physically and fiscally to be in a better place. However, their motivations, if they have not healed themselves, are still going to be extrinsically people-pleasery focused, codependent. They're not going to be intrinsic to be satisfying what the core needs of their true selves are. In a way, the scapegoated child is in a possibly a more fortunate situation in that because they're the truth teller, the wool might come off their eyes quicker as to what's going on in this family situation, because the scapegoated child is the shame basket carrier or the shame bearer for the family. So the scapegoat survivor does have a resilience, or a resilience builds up in them and a fortitude develops over time. They might not realise or feel like that's happening. They may not take it well if they're told, "Don't worry, you always bounce back." They might not react well to that because they don't feel like that. However, it's true that resilience doesn't feel like resilience while resilience is being grown. And yes, I know this personally. But this is where exposure therapy can be a good thing. We're not going to be able to avoid all narcissists forever for the rest of our lives. Yeah, literally not until kingdom fully comes. However, although we may have gone out of contact with our family of origin, and in some cases, this really, there's no other way around it, and that is the best bet. However, that's not the case for all families. And either way, until we learn to take that introjected narcissistic parent out of us, or really the whole dysfunctional family system that has been internalized out of us, then those patterns that we have, as if they feel like an ingrained part of our being, they will fashion the way that we respond to the world. So it's very important work to get that system out of us, a work that needs to be done. So if you find yourself in this situation, preferably, or in a situation where you can practice the resilience to some of the more awkward feelings of standing up for ourselves, then this can be good, especially if you can find, say, a low stakes situation to practice those muscles. Because at some point, if we can say to ourselves, I feel some kind of system guilt here, don't like it, but you know what? It's okay. It's okay. Like, so what? And so what has kind of become a mantra for me personally to many situations. I've even got it on my door. And when my nephew was here, he broke a light bulb. Not light bulb, but the actual, like the lampshade. And you know what? I just pointed at the door and said, so what? I mean, at the end of the day, we can't take it with us. And me getting angry is not going to help. Yeah. So it's kind of become a mantra, and it can be quite useful, especially for those who are very conscientious to the point of a sort of hypervigilant fault, or with perfectionism, to say, oh, do you know what? So what? So if there's some kind of low stakes situation, I don't know, maybe it even is with family and they want you to bake a cherry pie and, you're being true with yourself and you don't really have time, you're not feeling it, but you don't want to go over explaining, and you say, well, I know that you want me to bake a cherry pie this weekend, and I appreciate that you like that cherry pie. However, I won't be able to this weekend, but I will go to the store and buy a cherry pie instead and bring that along. And there you have stipulated what you're willing to do. You've recognised what they want with respect, and you said what you are going to do doesn't tally exactly with what they want, and that's okay to you. And then you can just move on and say, well, what's for dinner? Or what are we doing tomorrow? Or what's our plan for next weekend? Or whatever you're going to say next, to just move it on and give them an invitation to the next thing to think about, but in a positive and free-flowing way. Another thing that's useful to keep in mind is sometimes the narcissist will ask a very accusatory question or will put lies into their question, trying to bait you to respond to those lies and get into a fight and wrestle with pigs. Don't do it. It might sound disingenuous, but if you respond to how you would have liked them to ask the question or what you would have wanted them to ask, that's a really useful tool to have in your tool belt. Don't respond while you're feeling annoyed. Wait until later. And then you can say, well, I'll respond to the part of the question that's valid, like arrangements next week or something. And the rest of it, if you didn't want them to ask it, just don't respond to it. Yeah. Watch it work. It does work. Anyway, so we need to remember that we're also not in rebellion. So we're not here to fight and wrestle with pigs. Bad company corrupts good fruit, and that involves wrestling with them too. And that's why when they manage to crazy make us, so if we fight back, they can crazy make us. So I've got to do a video on that. I said I would the other day, didn't I? So I have to do that soon. If we retaliate, they can easily point the finger back at us and say, look at you. You're mad. You overreact. That's ridiculous. And turn the whole table around so that their crimes are now all pinned on you. Whee! So we need to gently let them know that we respect the fact that they have an opinion, however we don't agree. One client I know had a situation in her church with an old lady, and the old lady was telling the woman what for about her child going around with a sausage on a fork. It was a plastic fork. It was not a dangerous fork. Granted, the woman doing the accusing was from a different generation and is much older than my client, and I know a lot of people will just acquiesce because somebody is an elder, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't be respectful to our elders, we need to be. However, so my client felt very empowered because in that moment she managed to turn around to the woman and practice this, and she said to the woman, I respect and understand that your opinion is that she shouldn't be running around with the sausage on the fork. And you're very welcome to your opinion. However, I don't agree. And I'm okay with her, with the sausage on the fork, going around with her friends out there. And she described to me the look on the woman's face as being absolutely just annoyed. But there was nothing more the woman could say. There was nothing to get her grip on. And this client did tell me about her friend dealing with the same cantankerous old woman at their church. And when this woman had gone to her friend and said, oh, the children, da-da-da-da-da, instead of keeping that woman on her side of the fence and her, the friend being on her own side of the fence, the friend started to go onto the old woman's side of the fence. Oh, which children? I'll tell them, and I'm going to make sure they don't do that again. When it was not something unreasonable. Obviously, if the children are behaving unreasonably, then they would have to be told. That's a different story. That's taking accountability. But when we acquiesce to something that's not true for us, or when we fight with it, we are giving away our power. We are giving it to the narcissism, or giving it to the demons, or however is best for you to describe it. So this, keeping them on their fence and keeping you over here, this can be practiced anywhere. So say you're in a queue at the supermarket and someone complains that you're taking too long. Oh, you're taking so long. Oh, how could anyone take this long? Oh, one can simply state that, okay, you're welcome to your opinion that you think I'm taking very long, and I don't agree with you, and that's okay. And I'm okay. No, and I'm okay with that. Or you could even say, you think I'm taking a long time, and perhaps I'm taking longer than you would like, but do you know what? I'm actually okay with that. It will diffuse the situation and take fire out of the situation. But you're not arguing with them. And it's if you start arguing with them, that's where the energetic play and they can start to siphon energy off you comes from. Even with family members, say they're around a dinner table and the mother is telling the son that he is always disrespectful. The son might say, do you know what, Mum? Sometimes I really can be disrespectful. Now, the part of her that needs the adulation is being stroked, in the sense that he's saying there is a tiny bit of validity in what you're saying. However, he isn't agreeing with his mother's remark of always, and he is making it quite clear that, yep, sometimes he can be disrespectful, which probably he can. And that's the thing, the scapegoat is able to take accountability, but they don't want to take accountability for more than is true or honest, or that needs to be taken accountability for. So often these comments are made by narcissistic parents just to get a rise out of their targeted child, to trigger them into a reaction so that the demons, or the narcissism, if you prefer, can feed off of those reactions. The narcissistic parent is so used to recoiling from their scapegoated child that the scapegoated child, when they were younger, they internalize that recoiling and they recoil from themselves. And this is a big sort of paradox. But now it's time. The part of growing up is going in and saying to that part of the self that the adult you has recoiled from because they were taught to, and say, do you know what? Hey, it's okay. I'm here now, and I know it's not fair that you've been recoiled from for most of your life. That's not going to happen anymore. You can trust me, and we're going to brave this world together, warts and all. And I will continue to love you. So let's just hold hands and go out there and be free, finally, to just be. So, generational curse breaker, Stand strong and be encouraged in the fact that you were given eyes to see. Not everyone is gifted with that. Please do like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already. It is a new channel at the moment, and I look forward to making a lot more videos on the subject of narcissism, how to heal from narcissistic abuse from a biblical and practical perspective.